Hi, welcome back to the Paranormal Archives. Today, Genevieve will share her journey to paganism.
My name is Genevieve. I am a performer, so I'm a stand-up comedian, I'm a poet, I write and produce shows, I've done some acting, modelling, and I am also a practising pagan witch. I was brought up as an extremely strict Irish Roman Catholic, and for people who understand Roman Catholicism, Irish Roman Catholicism is like a whole subculture. It's incredibly oppressive, particularly to little girls. And I was brought up to believe from as early as I can remember that the devil was constantly trying to tempt me to do things that would lead me to go to hell. And there was, Jesus was the only person that could bring you any sort of light in this world, and actually that this world didn't matter because it's all about building up sort of, drip for the next life was the kind of what. So it was never an option to me. So when I discovered my faith, it was actually a little bit frightening because I had no idea what it was, but I absolutely knew it was real. So then I was like living in Roman Catholicism but knowing I was a witch when I was about 8, and that's quite a weird place to be, but I'm grateful for it although, because it made me interesting. There's lots of things that should have made me move away from the Catholicism, like being shunned when I was a sort of very young person who got pregnant outside of marriage. When I got divorced, that I was already left by then, but the comment from my family was, "Oh, we've never had a divorce in the family." And I was like, "Yay me!" But I don't. I think for me it was, I'm very. I've got very strong beliefs about what's right and wrong in the world and who needs to be protected and what needs to be prioritised and what's important, and it got a complete disconnect with Roman Catholicism, so I don't have anything to do with that anymore, and I'm actually quite anti. Written a show about it. When I was a child, I realised that I had something that nobody else had, and it was really frightening because I was raised to believe that anything that wasn't godly was from the devil. So then I thought, it's quite a lot for when you're sort of a little kid to realise that you're damned for all eternity. But, it's certainly something you need to find out early. And actually, I'm not at all damned. I was damned when I was a Catholic. Now I'm a pagan and in touch with my true self. I'm living my best life. And I suggest everyone has an open mind about it because there's a lot of joy to be discovered, as well as all the ghost bros running around going, woo. It's just like a really chill, natural way to live, and makes more sense to me than sitting in a church and listening to some man in a dress bang on about things, but what do I know? In my practice, I'll make some moon water, I charge my crystals, I'll light a candle and manifest. On Beltane, I'll be me and my friends are having a fire in the garden, we'll just chuck some herbs on it and send up beautiful, sexy thoughts. For me, it's the pagan calendar, so which underlies all of our Christian festivals. Everyone knows that, and it is just you need a big midwinter. I mean, there's loads of them, but the ones we all know about: big midwinter festival. You need like a sexy springtimey thing, eggs, bunnies, and all of that. And then Beltane's when we're all kind of ready to be like fertile and pregnant, having had lovely Ostara. And then you've got harvest, you've got high summer, you've got the solstices. So it just gives my life real rhythm and structure. And it kind of fits in with other humans because they're all kind of doing their commercial versions of whatever the trendiest festivals are, spend all their money. I buy my kids presents. I also just bring in greenery from the outside at Yule and just light a lot of candles and have a lovely time and a feast. So it does fit around normal life, but it just feels so much more grounded. Like I know, because I only have to look out my window and I can see it's spring. I can see if it's summer or winter. Like it feels real. So just a common sense practice with a few magical elements that suit me. I love crystals, I love incense, I love creating a bit of a scene and a vibe, but I could do it in a broom cupboard with just my grannies and it would be just as real, So my first experience that I remember was my family was, because we're Catholics, there was a lot of us. So my mum was the eldest of 10 kids and I was the eldest of 5, and we were all sort of raised in this kind of gaggle because nobody else liked us because we were a big weird Catholic family that didn't have like television and stuff. So we got on these big family holidays. My granddad liked Dartmoor. That was the only place he liked to go on holiday, just Dartmoor. So every year he'd load up his green Dodge van with as many of the grandkids as he could pile in, and other people would take cars, and we'd all go in convoy only on the A roads because my granddad wouldn't use motorways, from Whitstable to Devon, which takes about 7 hours if you don't use motorways. And we'd all go there, and I loved Dartmoor. I've always just felt there's something there that is, for me, and me alone, as well as everybody else. I was fascinated with the folklore, like the black dogs of Dartmoor. There's Jay's grave that a lot of people don't know about, which is there's a grave on the edge of the moor in a small village. It was a young servant girl that got pregnant, and that was shameful. So she jumped in the River Dart and killed herself, and they fished her out and they buried her on the outskirts of the village of the moor because she was damned, because she committed suicide. And every morning there are fresh flowers on that grave, and that's been going on for 100 years, and no one really knows or has ever seen the flowers get there. But for me, it was that stuff. It was like people like me can be celebrated. It was like that there's something going on. One day we got taken to, I think it was Haytor. There's a lot of prehistoric and kind of even sort of up to medieval sort of like ruined villages on Dartmoor. This was a very old one. I think it was Iron Age. All I knew was the Tor is like an old volcano, like for people that don't know. So like there used to be volcanoes on Dartmoor and in other places. And what happens is it erupts, it hits the freezing cold air of Dartmoor and immediately freezes. So you just get a big lump of rock on top of the hill, and that's what it is. And this one was a favourite of my family, and it is surrounded by these kind of stone circles. Some of them are hut circles, and some of them were more standing stones kind of circles. And I wandered off. I was literally 8. The rest of the family were all encamped somewhere. I went wandering off, sat in a stone circle, and I can feel it now actually on my arms. I sat in this circle and feeling it very gradually. It's almost like a feeling of like hunkering in, and then nothing else existed outside of the circle, just me in the circle. And then I started hearing these voices chanting and muttering, and it was a language that I didn't understand, but I absolutely knew what they meant. And they were telling me that this is a sacred place, people have been coming here for years, like you're safe here, like you're meant to be here. And I just had this feeling of like people have been here, it's going on my spine now, and I'm part of it. I can remember the trees, because the trees up on the moors don't grow very tall, and they're all shrunken over and small, and it was very enclosed space. And I went running back to my Roman Catholic family full of this amazing experience I'd had, and I was literally, they might as well have pinned me down and exorcised me then and there. It was like, God doesn't exist for anybody else except for us. Like there's only one way to communicate. Anything you're hearing is from the devil, and this is really dangerous, and you're the kind of child that obviously attracts that kind of thing. This is all I was 8. So that was my first experience. However, I'd actually blocked that out, and very recently I was doing a bit of ancestor. It was around Samhain. I was doing a lot of talking with my women ancestors, recent and more long ago, because that's time to do it. And from nowhere, I literally opened a box, and I don't have anything from my childhood, and an old photo of me, little blonde me with the Tor behind me, and I swear it was that day, and it popped up out of a box and was given to me. And then I remembered, and it was like my grannies are saying to me, you've always had this, like. And one of the grannies is one of the people that told me that I was going to the devil, but obviously where she is now, she's obviously got some insight, and she's like, I'm sorry. This is the kind of thing that I say to people in pubs, and then they look at me blankly and kind of back away. That was my first spiritual experience. I've never had a spiritual experience in a church, but I've had so many outside, and that was my first one. There you go. My gift to you. I've always sort of had an interest. I've always tried to do manifesting. I've always felt a really strong connection to the moon. It took me a long time. I don't think people realise how traumatic it can be to unpack any sort of religious childhood and find your true self. I mean, like I said, I'm in my 40s, and it's only in the last since I got divorced, actually, since I broke up from my husband, because he didn't like me doing that kind of thing anyway. That was a whole nother story. But so in the last 5 years, I asked for things and they granted to me. So I was literally having a conversation with someone about something completely different. And this woman that I've always been fond of was just there on the periphery of the conversation. And I said to someone about 5 years ago, I'm searching, like I need someone just to tap me into what I know I have, but I feel lost. And this woman, who I didn't, she piped up and she came over and she was like, are you talking about paganism? And I said, I don't really know what I'm talking about. And she went, well, if you want someone to help you, I'll meet up with you regularly. Started meeting up with her about once a month. She kept giving me books and books to read. There's a lot of reading if you want to be a proper witch. But really, it all just made sense because I already had it. So then I'm just like, got this lovely older lady who's been in the same coven since the 70s. And she's on the same sort of political belief as me. So again, it all just flowed together. I didn't have to look far. I just said what I needed and it came along. So now I'm a solitary witch. I do a lot of kind of healing stuff. I do a bit of sex magic. I do a lot of stuff to do with the moon, crystals, water. But in terms of communicating with things that we cannot see, that's a daily thing for me. And the only change that's happened is I've completely forgiven myself for being able to do it, which is childhood trauma. And then I've just kind of opened my mind and started seeing everything as connected, sort of non-duality, like there are no coincidences. And from that, I feel like my communication with things that humans can't see has just become so much more layered and nuanced, because I just know that we are not the be-all and end-all. There is so much more that we can't see, and just to dismiss it is just so arrogant. You can go through life, with sort of little blinkers on and be safe and happy, or you can see what's really there. And not everyone can see as much as I see. It's been a blessing and a curse, but it's just part of me and I embrace it fully now. But I think with age comes confidence. Like when I was younger, I wouldn't have had the bravery to be, because it seems weird, doesn't it? There's a lot of gatekeeping as well in paganism. So a lot of the younger girls that are getting into it, just because they like the aesthetic and they like Stevie Nicks and they want to be spooky. But who's to say some of these girls might not be, amazing sort of powers? But there's a lot of, like, again, pagan bros who are sort of like, well, you haven't been doing that properly. It's just a fashion statement. The other night I was in a pub. I didn't ask a man anything. He was just talking to me. I was sitting at the pub and someone mentioned, oh, Jen's a witch. And this man went to me, are you a Wiccan? And I looked at him and I said, well, no, so I'm not American. And I'm a British pagan witch in the tradition of my family. And he had the cheek to go, well done. I was testing you. I was like, mate, you really want to test a witch in public who's a feminist? Yeah, I didn't think the rest of his evening probably didn't go very well. It's not my problem. He shouldn't have said it. I do think that having something that makes you a bit different really helps. So, like childhood trauma. I'm autistic and I've got ADHD. I think that's helped because I see the world different. It's not set up for me. And if you have that outsider kind of feeling, I do feel like if the herd's not wanting you to walk with them, it gives you more of an open mind. And I think that's how all of us little weirdos get our little bunches of friends and our weird little hobbies. I think that's humanity. And if you're blessed to be, tall, good looking, wealthy, white, live in a nice place and get a good education and you're happy with the status quo, I do feel that would limit spirituality because you've got nothing to fight for. You've got no fellow feeling with anyone apart from the herd. And, I never associated with the herd. But firstly, because they didn't want me, but now because I would want nothing to do with them. But I do think being a little bit weird helps, but I do think all humans, of course, like there's so much of the brain we're not tapping into, which I believe, and I have nothing to back this up with, but I do believe a huge part of that unused brain is probably psychic potential. So anyone I think could do it, but I think they'd probably have to have a bit of a hard time before they unlocked it, like the rest of us. So, I wouldn't want to wish harm on anyone, but if it's their journey and they'll get something good out of it. We're all making this massive assumption that we can see things clearly. It's actually, even the way the human eye works, so we're all sent the signals upside down. What we experience in life is this human machine, our senses, what we experience here is our best estimation of what's really going on. It's like what the eye is perceiving, photons bounce back into my retinas. I have no idea what's really out here. It's shadows on the cave wall, as it should be. People who sort of like, oh, science, I'm like, mate, you don't even know what you're looking at. So, like, grow up. But yeah, I think life's an impressionist painting that we do ourselves in our head. There's a thing that happened recently with some friends of mine who are it's this lovely couple, two gorgeous boys. I say boys, but they're boys to me. Just bought a lovely old bakery in Ramsgate, and they're like, I love them to bits. Alvaro and Simon, hi. And they were saying to me, oh, Genevieve, we've got this, that we don't like going in the basements. Of course, being me, I was like, lead me to the basement. I want to see what's going on. And of course, there was cold patches. There was a horrible atmosphere and stuff. But they've done up the rest of the house and they've ignored the basement. Like, to me, that is just like, if anyone's living there, particularly if they're based in the basement where the baker's oven is, that's going to piss you off. There's a big, beautiful, gay, creative party going on upstairs. And in the basement, it's still dingy and damp and no one cares about you. So that's what I said to them. And they were like, oh, and I realised it's because people think that spirits are different to humans and that's why they're scared of them because they can't see them. And I'm like, you don't believe in money. Like, you can't see money, but you believe in it, like, and I was scared of it. And it's the same sort of thing. Like, they're just people. If you buy someone's house and they're still living there, it doesn't matter if they're invisible, and then you walk in and you change everything and then you leave them in the basement, it's going to piss someone off, particularly someone that's like 400 years old plus whatever age they were when they died. So to me, because I'm not scared of it, I'm like, it's people, and you just have to be polite and act with respect. So you see TV shows where people rush in like, oh, it's horrible energy, it doesn't want us here. I'm like, I wouldn't fucking want you there either. The way you're behaving, get out of my house. I've got some history with kind of mental health problems. So I used to find like voices and stuff extremely upsetting because I wasn't sure where it was coming from and if it needed to be medicated or if it was some sort of insight. It didn't really work for me. So when I got to a point where I was like very stable, but I still wanted to pursue that. So I actually discovered the tarot just as a divination thing. For me, it's more to check in with myself and just see what's going on with me. And then once I relaxed into having that kind of communication, now I actually have, I call them ancestor voices. They're basically my Irish grandma and my French grandma. I'm a lucky person in that it's so much part of my life that I can just chat to them and to other people. And if I go into a space, I can just settle down for a minute and I can sense the vibe and then I can just chat. But other people need, bell book, candle, like where, whatever helps it. No judgment. But for me, it is an intensely personal, like very real experience. I just think that's the thing. If people could let go of this fear, which is processed into us by religion, like if you're not on the right path, everything else is scary. And it's like if you accept that everyone's on all different paths, then actually nothing has to be scary if you just behave yourself. Then I think we'd all have much nicer psychic experiences. And that is my TED Talk. There you go.